What does democracy look like? Civic action, civic involvement. And who does democracy look like? People just like you and me. Welcome to Women Powered Democracy, a podcast by the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. I'm Jane McMillan, a member of the League of Minneapolis. Women Powered Democracy introduces you to extraordinary League members who've powered positive changes in our communities, our state, and our nation through their decades of League volunteerism and civic action. In this installment of Women Powered Democracy, we're honored to have time with a civil rights pioneer and a democracy powerhouse, Dr. Josie Johnson, a 7-decade member of the League of Women Voters. Born into a civically active family in Texas, and having experienced the racial oppression of pre- and post-World War II, Josie as a young woman dug into her African-American history, using that rich legacy to inform others of their heritage, their power, their rightful place of dignity and equity in America. It would become her lifelong mission. Dr. Johnson's social justice works and accomplishments are nothing less than historic, not only in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, but across this country, hailed by dignitaries the likes of Vice President Walter Mondale and civil rights legend Vernon Jordan. Talk about being in the rooms where it happened. Josie made much happen. Josie Johnson has been a driving force for a better quality of life for all of us through access to fair housing and jobs, equal quality education, and of course, to the sacred right to vote, unimpeded by racial, political, or economic disparities. In it all, her through line has been what she calls hopeful work, the patient yet undaunted collaborative effort it takes for successful social change. You're going to hear a lot about that in our visit with Josie, as she will so warmly introduce herself. And while her groundbreaking civil rights accomplishments would fill hours of discussion, here we get to hear her very personal feelings about being a member of the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis and Minnesota, and how the League has been one of her partners in powering democracy.
Jane, hi, it's Josie.
Josie, it's such a pleasure to speak with you.
And it's a pleasure to talk with you, always with my League of Women Voters people. So thank you very much for calling.
You know, I'm just so excited to hear from you about your feelings about the League. Do you remember what was it that drew you to get involved?
Well, I thought about that. We moved, my husband and children and I moved to Minneapolis in the 1950s. And I had developed a wonderful relationship with a woman that I'd known through a variety of activities and her family, and we developed a very close friendship. So I learned that she was a member of the League of Women Voters, and she invited me to some of the League's meetings. And it just became kind of an automatic connection because our communication seemed to be around issues of our community and the nation, and we seem to discuss methods of addressing issues that we talked about. So there always appeared to be not just words and talk, but direction towards taking some kind of action. So it was, a productive relationship, and I enjoyed it very much.
Sounds like it was the effectiveness of the League that kept you involved.
The fact that we could identify issues, not one-sided interests, the community, the people, the action, the things. And she my friend, was interested in the same things I was. So, we became close in our common interests, and our children, they were in the same age group, so we had lots that connected us. She was my good friend.
I've heard that over and over again with women in the league, especially longtime league members, how it became not just a way to be involved in the community and affect positive change, but became a deep personal way to connect with other women and make friends. Those friendships have lasted a lifetime.
And I think it's not something you plan, that you sit down and write an agenda. It becomes a natural set of conversations. And the fact that we were young women with families and children, and there were commonalities there, the eating, the putting to bed, those kinds of things that you do, made those relationships comfortable and natural. You could step away from the common everyday issues of mother and babies to questions, ideas, talk about your community and what your role could be. So the League has always, for me, been an important part of my life. I don't mean to sound dramatic about it, but just it's there.
Doesn't sound dramatic at all. Connections, being effective in our communities, is the important stuff of life. You can already feel, I'm sure, Josie's warmth and graciousness. As many have attested, her sincere desire to connect with people personally as well as professionally in her goal of lifting all boats has been her not-so-secret weapon of effectiveness. And with the struggles that were to come, it's no wonder Josie, with these qualities, played pivotal roles. With you joining the League in the 50s, my goodness, you have been on board before and through the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the awakening of the environmental movement, the sexual and gender equality movement. I can only imagine how invigorating and how challenging that was.
As you outline it in that order, I think about these were women in that time who appreciated the opportunity to be not just moms, but people engaged and interested in the developments in our community. So the League served as a system of information, of sharing, of discussing, of challenging some of the thoughts we had at that time of making these major changes. We were going to be great change agents in our society. So the League served for me and for many, I'm sure. It was an opportunity for women to talk intellectually and to feel that you were engaged, not just listening, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah. Those of us who I think at that time identified ourselves as League of Women Voters, that represented sort of the collective of knowing the issues and ways of resolving whatever we thought the resistance to change might be, and to pull together ideas, develop strategies that we thought might help us make a difference. And particularly in those early days in the 50s, when we felt eager to be engaged in developing legislation and methods and thinking that we could make a difference. Probably a lot of, when I think back to that sort of arrogance on our part, that we could be engaged, we could actually identify issues, that we knew how to research them, look them up, gather the data you needed in order to address them with a sense of intellectual attention. So those were the early learning years, I guess, darling, that many of our members continue to feel, create that environment for learning, and then action.
And then action. That's really the other half of it. And I don't think it sounds arrogant at all. I think it sounds like citizens taking responsibility for their community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I agree.
Well, certainly not arrogance, but these women, Josie and others, they had determination and confidence in their convictions and bravery. This is a good place to mention just some of Josie's history-making actions. She was the lead lobbyist for the Minnesota Fair Housing Bill, passed in Minnesota years before the national legislation. At the height of violence against Black voting rights in the South, she and other courageous women went to Mississippi to train voter registration volunteers at great personal danger. She was a co-leader of the Minnesota delegation to the historic March on Washington, and later Josie championed the creation of the Department of African American Studies at the University of Minnesota. She became one of its first faculty members and the first Black woman elected to the university system's Board of Regents. In these momentous accomplishments, Josie's collaboration with several groups and organizations, including the League, reminds us there truly is strength in numbers. I've heard several League members, longtime League members, say it was the togetherness and the collaboration that gave them strength and gave the movements they were involved in strength. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I do. What it allowed us to do is to really think collectively. It forced you to look at the issues you were discussing from many points of view and to really find the legislative language you needed to go to your council person, to your legislator, to your state representative, and talk about these things with a sense of intellectual understanding and be forced to follow up. Did the meeting have solutions or recommendations for solutions? And I think that's what the League does. It directs you in action. And I know that's going on right now in your generation, as it did in the early generation of people trying to impact, make a difference, see what can happen if you work together.
That's a lot of trust in the process, in the legislative process, in the governmental process. There's, I think, some questioning of that today, that the processes are going to hold. What would you say to young women wanting to make change today?
Well, what I have observed is that many of the young women with whom I've had the privilege of talking really seem to take their role very seriously. They're not just giving time. They are really working towards resolution to issues that they feel are very important in the society. What legislation is necessary? Is legislation already there? And what you need to do is to find it and make sure you understand it and that you lobby legislators leading to some serious resolutions and action, and knowing what action needs to be taken in order to make a change. And I feel that the League does that. Not only does it encourage you to do research and investigation and develop language that addresses the issue, but that it then supports and works and goes to the legislature and goes to city council meetings. It follows through. Now, I may be dreaming an old dream, but that's the way the League functions now, doesn't it, in your judgment?
It does. It fosters staying power, and it fosters the patience to keep at something until it's done.
Exactly. I agree.
Now, who doesn't want injustice stopped quickly? Unfairness and prejudice eradicated immediately. But as you've heard over and over, it's the meticulous, well-prepared approach to tackling complex and entrenched social issues that is Josie's prescription for success. So you can imagine her perseverance, her patience over these more than 70 years of activism. She says the path forward often reveals itself in this careful process. If you could speak to the young women out there of every age and diversity, and why would you encourage them to come to the League to make the changes they want to see?
Yeah, that's a very good continuing question. I think sometimes we get involved in acting without knowing whether the action is going to lead to success of any kind. And I think the behavior of the League of Women Voters and the way it has been organized to really study together, identify issues, then get out there and work to make things happen, that has been a method that can help us be serious and encourage young women to help us make those changes and to stay focused. Leaguers are people who know when to continue, when to pause, when to stop. And I think we who are engaged in this very important work, I hope we never minimize our objective and our purpose, and that we never get to the point where we're just quick to ask, quick to answer, quick to write, and not evaluate all of that with the changes we think our system needs. And I don't know if you're old enough, perhaps, to feel this old lady's sense of sometimes we seem to want to move so quickly that we may lose some of the sense of the struggle that is required to determine whether we are making a difference, significant difference, system change. So the League, for me, is always a very special organization. And I hope you can sense my respect and appreciation for our organization and figure out what we can continue to do, even as I grow older and less able, that there is something that the League always offers us the opportunity to be engaged in and working towards improving things all the time.
Even after accomplishing so much that benefited all of us, Dr. Josie Johnson reminds us the work continues. Josie, thank you for everything. Wise, eloquent, and at 94, still so generous with her time and attention. You may have noticed there her reference to the struggle itself being part of what informs and clarifies the actions needed for meaningful progress. And always hopefulness, the critical ingredient. That's the theme of Josie's autobiography, Hope in the Struggle. The book is also the basis of a Minnesota Experience documentary of the same name from Twin Cities Public Television. What a gift to have shared her company in this visit, and an honor to be able to say that we share the bonds of membership in the League of Women Voters with Josie Johnson. You can share that bond with Josie with us. We would love to have you as a member, a donor, a subscriber, preferably all three, because there has never been a more critical time to protect and power democracy, to secure and expand the vote in the face of renewed suppression efforts, to fight mis- and disinformation, to continue pushing until the ERA is written into our Constitution, and to demand that foundational document is followed. Join us at LWVMN.org, because democracy looks just like you. Thank you for joining the League of Women Voters of Minnesota on Women-Powered Democracy. I'm Jane McMillan.